On this planet, there's never been two individuals of anything from bacteria
Mm.
to you name it that were ever the same or ever will be the same.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite, my friend. This show is about helping you to be healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, as well as harmonize your masculine and feminine energy, tap into your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. I'm really excited to share with you today's guest because he's an extremely accomplished person, a scientist no less, and professor in the field of like ecology, animal and wildlife behavioral studies, and extremely proficient author. He's got like 5 books, one of which I reference, Nourishment, which I love. I got the audio book and listened to it recently when I went on a long road trip. But I don't really go down the typical topics that most people interview this guy on, although all those topics are so unbelievably interesting and important. And frankly, that's why I wanted him on the show, because you know I love animals, and if you subscribe, I'm sure you do too, and you're interested in getting more connection with not only yourself and your soul and your spirit, but with all of nature and life, and of course Awakening Aphrodite, our girl, which is the natural, the feminine, the essence of our feeling, intuitive, spiritual body. But because of what I learned about Fred in researching him, I felt like, you know what? This guy is totally living in his Aphrodite. Like, here's a person that pretty much since birth or childhood, and we talk about this in the episode, so he confirmed it, was pretty much directed by his instincts and his intuition. I'm so jealous because I think we all start out that way, but I don't know about you, but I got diverted and got stuck in my head and all the people pleasing and all that stuff and got away from what my soul and heart was calling me to do. And that's why I'm here with you right now, because now I'm spending the rest of my life trying to get it all back together. So I decided to kind of discover from Fred how he does that. Like, how did he have any tips or secrets for the rest of us trying to catch up, living in our instincts and our intuition and awakening Aphrodite in us? Because I thought, again, it was just super interesting to have a discussion with a man about being in his feminine in such a way that was so beautiful and obvious. So we talk about how, he didn't really have a plan. That's a very feminine way to live. And obviously he's connected in nature with his study on animal work. And the importance of relationships. Here's Aphrodite again. She's all about relationships. And then we talk about the wisdom of the body and how that's in you. And of course, it requires feelings and feeling your body. He talks about following your bliss, and he's a big fan of the work of Joseph Campbell, as am I. And we talk about how nature is all about novelty. There is no such thing as normal, my friend. It doesn't matter what the RDA and what people say is a normal behavior or requirement for a person. Fred basically puts the nail in the coffin that no, in fact, based on his 35, 40 years of research, nature doesn't like the same. It likes variety. And it's just really interesting. I just got such an education learning from this guy. I find him absolutely fascinating. We also talk about what he refers to as being a licked rat. Are you a licked rat? Well, we're going to find out if you are a licked rat. I don't think I was a licked rat, but we're going to talk about what the heck that is, the importance of epigenetics, and how your environment, your behavior, and your choices are more powerful than your DNA and your genes. And in fact, those 3 things I just mentioned actually change and influence your genes. So this is the good news. It doesn't matter how you were born and what happened to you. we can actively do something to feel empowered and change it to get the results we want. Yay! I always love bringing you the good news. We also talk about how animals are basically living in their inner Aphrodite. Maybe this is part of why we love them so much. And how because of our overthinking, we get out of touch with our instincts. That's not a newsflash, right? I'm sure you know that that's what we do. Then we talk about how modern foods basically hijack our chemistry and lead to bad choices, which is just a self-fulfilling defeat. And we talk about eating for satisfaction and fullness and how that's different than getting in a loop of overeating, and how to eat for satisfaction. What do you need to do so you feel satisfied when you eat, so you don't just keep eating and find yourself overweight and depressed and feeling really lethargic and heavy. And finally, I couldn't let Fred go without something epic that I heard him say, basically, because I listened to his book on audio. And he talks about how we don't find God through suffering, but rather we find God through surrender. And he references his study of Eckhart Tolle, and I thought it was just really fascinating because Fred talks about his own experience with cancer and how that led him to an act of surrender, which then ultimately led to him basically being enlightened and going like walking on a cloud for 3 or 4 years. Okay, 3 or 4 years. This guy was like in la la land. He basically got touched by grace and felt very enlightened. It's just fascinating. This man is fascinating to me. I think he's amazing. So I hope you check him out. Check out his books. All that stuff is in the show notes. And the book I'm referencing is Nourishment, which again, you can get on audio. And I really hope you enjoy it. Also, if you want to support me, the best way to do so is just to subscribe, share the show with people you think might like it. It's really easy to do. And take 2 minutes and leave me a review on Apple iTunes. Super easy to do and so helpful for me. So I appreciate you very much. Let's now join Fred Provenza. Fred, welcome to the show.
Wonderful to be here with you, Amy.
I am so thrilled to sit down with you, Fred, because I just took a very long road trip. And the first audiobook I had on my list was yours. Not only in preparation for today's show, but also because, my goodness, your life, I'm jealous. I just want to come back as you. I wish I had a chance to do everything that you've done. My audience pretty much knows that I feel like I have a second chance on my life after my midlife burnout a couple years ago and being a reformed people pleaser. I now feel so grateful that I have an opportunity to really tap into what my soul wants to do and the Aphrodite in me, and turning into the pleasure of the labor of love rather than just labor. That's just a big part of not only my life, but my show. And I couldn't help but be so jealous when I researched you, because you studied stuff in school that I didn't even know existed that I would want to study about nature and ecology and animals. And so I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Your book, Nourishment Audio, got me through a 4-day drive. You were with me every step of the way. I took so many notes, I almost crashed a few times, but I'm still here. So I just want to thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, Amy. And I have been really a fortunate person, I guess, but I never take credit for it. It's more, I guess, the spirit moving through us or whatever. But what you mentioned there at first too, the people pleaser part and so forth, that I often think of Joseph Campbell talking about follow your bliss, find what's in you and follow that. Follow that, and it doesn't mean you can't be nice to people, do great things for people, but just follow that. And when I think back, my wife asked me a while back, did you have a plan for what you wanted to do? I said, no, it just emerged. There was never a plan. There was nothing. It just following from when I was a little kid. I loved anything wild. If it moved, I was fascinated by it. Insects, birds, fishes, mammals. just fascinated. And I've just followed that, and I never knew where it was going to lead, that's for certain. And you run into, so many different people, and I'm speaking for all of us. This is not, for each of us, we meet people that we don't know. We look back then over our life and we think, oh my gosh, what a huge, how that person caused me to go this direction, and all it all emerges in ways that are really mysterious to me. I think of a lot of Joni Mitchell's song, Both Sides Now. She talks about, I don't know clouds, I don't know love, I don't know life. And I think really that's how I feel now. And I don't feel any need to. It's just amazing. It's just all amazing. But I often say that, and I mean it. I don't really take credit in any ways. And any good things we did research-wise, that all came from relationships with other people, from just amazingly fun, loving, creative relationships, working together. And it was fun. It was amazing. It was just amazing. And a lot of what we got into, people didn't necessarily know or appreciate at the time. And that made it scary in some ways, because within the academic settings and within life in general, when you try to introduce something that people haven't thought of before and that you haven't thought of before, you can get a lot of pushback, right, on anything that's new and different. And but boy, it was fun. And some of those late night conversations coming back from study sites where we'd be dreaming out loud about things that nobody would dare talk about, and then graduate students doing amazing research on those things, and then defenses where people who were trained in a different way were having a hard time to swallow what was, it's all part of an amazing thing. But that's in life too, right? I mean, it's not just in science. People, anything that's new and different, many people are afraid of the unknown, and yet that's all such a part of what can be fun, the mystery of life, and embracing that mystery and wonder, and going wherever it takes you. So I don't, it's been, I feel like I've been blessed, but I hope it makes sense. I really don't take credit for that stuff. It was just, kind of, a manifestation in time and space. So I don't know where the spirit gets manifest in different forms.
I will say, objectively listening to that, what I'm hearing you say is that you innately were born as a young child, really tapped into your feminine. And everybody that subscribes to my show understands that the feminine masculine is a principle. It's an essence. It's in all of us. And it's a way of being. And how beautiful, because you were tapped into, you said you didn't have a plan. That's a very feminine way of being. It's a feminine paradigm. And so opposite, Fred, of what mine was growing up. Mine was like, what's the 1-year plan, the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan? All my business schools, everything. I came from a family business. So, we're trying to put food on the table. The business came first. The business, 7 days a week, no boundaries, workaholism, all that stuff. I'm still working out all those issues in myself. But my point is this is, again, probably why I gravitated to not only actually the content of your life's work, because I love animals and I love nature, but also just kind of how you lived and how you've arrived to where you are now. Because, my gosh, it's so different than mine, and probably a lot of my audience. Again, the name of my show, Awakening Aphrodite, is awakening that feminine in me, and in anyone who's interested to tap into that flow, and your connection to nature. Mother Nature is the feminine. Relationships, that's the feminine. You said that all of your amazing scientific studies and creations and stuff really came out of relationships. That's Aphrodite. So this is probably why I'm like super glue to you, or Velcro or something, because it's like, wow, this is like, I need to ask this person teach us how do we, the person who just, I guess, I would probably think it's safe to say, Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're probably all born innately intuitive and tapped in, and maybe, I don't know, it just gets out of us. But how do we as adults get that back, or get some Fred in us to get back into that?
I think you hit on such a key point. If anything, when I wrote the book Nourishment, it was a little bit of a rail on authoritarian kind of things. And that whole idea that there's a wisdom in the body that each of us possesses, not just, the first 3 chapters of the book were the physical part, but then it turns to uncertainty and then mystery and that spiritual part. I just believe that so much that, that each one of us, that's kind of a birthright, it's in us, it's deeply in us. But boy, from the minute we're born, we start to be trained, of how to live in a culture, and that's certainly, that's all important, but it can just totally override then you tapping into the way, into the wisdom of your own body in terms of what you eat, in terms of this. I think that's so much from a spiritual standpoint too. I love to read about the world's religions and different belief systems, the different ways people have around the globe have come to think about the transcendent, the absolute, the transcendent, the great spirit, whatever we want to, God, whatever we want to call it. But but what I think about so much, and I think about this whether it's in the physical realm or the spiritual realm, what you see is the cultural inflection, right? The local cultural inflection of this is how we are if we're in this part of the globe, we're in that part. Hinduism or Buddhism or Christianity, or all the different beliefs. There's jillions of them, but they're culturally inflected. And so then you think, okay, that's something. I was conceived, born, and reared a Catholic. I mean, hardcore, little altar boy and all. And I don't regret any of that. I don't. It was part of what my family and all the relatives. That's what, and very, very. But I'm thankful too that I read far beyond that. I've read, and to be honest, it really freed me from the cultural bounds that the cultural inflection to the elementary ideas, the kind of the elementary ideas, and that's what's in us. I think I love. I was reading a bunch in the last few years about Nisargadatta, who was an enlightened being, and the seekers would come there, and whenever they would start to tell them about, I learned this in Hinduism, or I learned that in Christianity, don't tell me about that. I don't want to hear about any of that. What's in you? And that's what I think all the time is what's in you, whether it's physical or spiritual, and not in some hubris way, but just that idea that that there's a wisdom that's in us, that's a part of that. And as we were saying a little bit before we started to record, shutting down all the chatter that's always going on, right? Because that is so much the cultural inflection. And you mentioned shedding your former self of people pleaser and stuff.